Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Radiant Central, and I'm your host, Natasha St. Michael, and thank you so much for joining me. So today I'm going to give my most effective tip on how to become more optimistic. Someone recently asked me, how do you get rid of the pessimism and the doubtful thoughts and just the negativity? And I thought it was a great question because I know many people are always working on this. They're always like, I need to be more positive, right? And a lot of times, whatever they do, it just doesn't seem to work, and sometimes their negativity just becomes greater and greater. So the one thing I can say, though, is that with optimism, I don't believe most people are born with it. It's something that people work on and they cultivate and they strengthen and develop in themselves and in how they interact in their life. And I have to also say, too, is that some of the most optimistic people I know have suffered the most and have actually, at some point in their life, been the most negative. And at some point or another, they just one day decide, it's negative thinking, it's not working for me, it's time to make some changes. So with becoming more optimistic, one thing that I actually suggest is practicing being more optimistic with other people. A lot of times people think that they have to control their thoughts, that they have to control what they're thinking, what they're doing, and change their own mental processes, their own thoughts, their own reactions to things in their own life. And a lot of times they get so caught up in everything that they're doing wrong and how negative they are in their head that it becomes very disempowering. And in fact, I find what actually can be more empowering and way more effective is, instead of focusing on you and your thoughts and your negativity, start focusing just on how you can practice being more optimistic with other people, how you can react to other people and their situations in a more optimistic light. So, for example, it's kind of like, we look in daily life, right? And if we look at people's conversations with their family, their friends, their loved ones, a lot of times people go to their friend about some sort of issue. And they're having a problem, or someone treated them really badly, or something really terrible happened. And they go to their friend or their loved one with this problem, and the friend's reaction is usually, oh, poor you, this is terrible, what are you going to do, this is awful. And this kind of conversation, as much as someone is sympathizing with their loved one or their friend, they're also feeding into the negativity and feeding into the pessimism and feeding into even disempowerment. And it's a way of, start looking at, how can I be more optimistic when someone comes to me with a problem or issue? How can I empower someone? How can I say something to someone that on one end sympathizes with them, but on the other hand allows them to look at things in a more positive light? So, for example, I can give you an example from my own personal life. This is something that happened to me, I'd say a little bit over 15 years ago. When I was 20 years old, I was in my last semester in university, and I was having some health issues, a lot of pain in my hip, and I'd undergone many, many tests and MRIs and all sorts of stuff. And then the doctor called me up one day and said to me that he found out what the issue was, and that I had a rare bone disease in my hip, and I might not be able to walk again, and for at least 9 to 12 months I'd have to either be on crutches or wheelchair, and it was pretty shocking and definitely heavy news, and it was not something I was expecting at all. And at that time, after I got off the phone with him, I called up my best friend, and when I called her up and told her the situation, her reaction to it was, wow, this is big. But Natasha, I know if anyone's out there that can handle this and change the situation, it's you. And in fact, I can't wait to see what's going to happen, because I know you're going to overcome this. And I was even more shocked by her reaction, because in a situation like that, I was kind of expecting to call up my friend and get some pity and just kind of go down even deeper into the negativity. But in fact, her reaction was complete opposite. That suddenly it kind of changed my perspective of the situation, where I was like, you know what? Maybe she's right. Maybe this isn't the end of the world. Maybe this is just the beginning of something great. And in fact, I got off the phone. After I spoke to her, I called up my mother in Canada, and I was like, Mom, they told me I had a bone disease in my hip. I might not be able to walk again, but I'm going to win. I'm going to overcome this. And I decided to stay in Chicago, continue my studies, graduate from school, things like that. And it was amazing to see that experience, because it was just took one person to be optimistic and to look at things in a more positive light for me to do that. And what ended up happening a few months later was that, the bone disease, it went away. I got off the crutches. I finished school. Everything was fine. And if it wasn't for my friend being so optimistic and really encouraging me, I might have given up earlier and not been where I am today. So with that experience, it really touched me. It touched me so deeply to see how one person's reaction can make such a huge difference that myself, who I used to actually be extremely negative and extremely pessimistic, started looking at how can I be more encouraging to other people. And automatically, I saw that the more that I'd start encouraging other people, my own thoughts would start changing, how I would react to my own situations, my own problems, my own negativity, was I started becoming more and more optimistic. And I found it was an easier change. Rather than focusing so much on me, I've got to change, and what's wrong with me, and what's wrong with my thoughts, and how my attitude. Instead, I kind of just put that aside and just said, you know what, I want to encourage other people. I want to be more optimistic with other people. I want to react to life differently. And the more I practice being more optimistic with others, naturally the more optimistic I became with myself. So sometimes it's about sort of working on our stuff and our issues and our negative patterns outside of ourselves. Work on how you're interacting with other people. And you just see that naturally how you go about things and your own thought processes just start to change without having to be controlling, without having to pick at your personality and how you deal with things. So if there's one thing that I can encourage people to do to really start being more optimistic, is start being more optimistic with anyone and everyone. Every time someone comes to you with a problem or issue, encourage them. Think about ways that you can make them feel better without sort of going into a deeper hole. But instead, how can you encourage people to look at life differently, to look at their situation differently, and to see other options. All right, so that is my tip of the day. I'm wishing you guys a fabulous day, and I'll see you again soon.